And so that's why one of the reasons we're not getting this.
Right.
And I think that's the issue. But also too, that lifestyle issue with the pastor. The pastor is the key, the leadership is the key. If we're not, Peter said it himself, we have to be examples to the flock. Jesus said, listen to what the Pharisees say, but don't do what they do, because they ain't doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So why should I preach to them if I'm not gonna model it?
Could you go back to your slide on the multiplication where you got the 5 things outlined? I'd just be curious in your, how things work. Because what I see there is something that works really well in a more urban setting. You know, a town of 50,000 or more. But as I watch that, and most of the towns, at least in Nebraska, aren't that way. I mean, our third largest city in Nebraska is the football stadium on Saturday.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, it's just the reality. So when I get down to leaders to competency and release, if I'm living in a town of, say, 1,200, 2,000 people, you're not gonna send anybody out from your church to do that. I mean, just realistically, that's not gonna happen. Nor would I think you'd want it to happen. I could see small groups being multiplied. I don't see churches started unless, though, you see what I'm seeing here is you're talking about something that's happening kind of organically.
Well, it is, it is, but it's very intentional. It's very intentional. The first place I pastored was at a town of, I had 3 small churches for the price of one.
Mm-hmm.
In, here, there, and yon, you know what I know?
Right.
And again, we saw this happen to here. The biggest way this happens is when you get small groups going and then someone comes from other towns or other areas that don't have that happening, and they're starting to say, ooh, we need something like this here. So, but it's the growing part. This is the part that I've always found hard for myself, that I did not stick with. I did not continue reaching lost. I got easily into here.
Right. See, and I've served in small towns
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I'm in a town of 7,500 now.
Yeah.
But first church I served was 480 people.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, I mean, I've been there.
Yeah, right.
If you talk about leaders released to competency and release from that church, that's not gonna happen.
No, and you're not always gonna, and again.
What I can see, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, what I can see though is a need for an institutional element about this within a district. Because, and I'm gonna talk like I'm an old guy, but I am.
Thank you so much.
When we came into the district, and this is 1986, so I am an old guy. We used to talk about institutionally as a movement, every church a mother church.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna, my people aren't gonna leave the town to go start another church. But they can start sending representatives to a town where a church is being started.
Correct.
And see, that's where it's not just organic to me, it's organizational.
Yeah.
And I see an important part of a piece though that doesn't get addressed if you don't bring that organizational thing. How do we get districts, a national movement, to embrace something institutional? I know that's a terrible word,
Well,
but it's an important word.
well,
Because when Luther's starting this church down there, and you know more about that history than I do.
Yeah.
We had a church that was part of that.
Yes.
I mean, we were institutionally tied to him. Now, we've sent people down there and we've done some things, not anywhere near what they're doing down there, but we've been connected there institutionally. I would love to see that addressed here.
Well, and I think that's
Tomorrow
exactly-
was-
we're gonna move on to that tomorrow, but I think that is one reason why Mike asked me to come down, is so we can start talking about how do we, because I agree with you, churches of 75 probably, unless they're in a growing community, probably are not gonna be starting new churches. But they can have this church over here. I was talking with some, who was I talking with? They said they had three different areas, about 30 miles apart, they had different churches. that those three might be able to come together and say, you know, we could plant another one together. But again, that's one of those lanes that you have to open up through a bigger organization. You can't do that as a church. You
Right.
have, and that's why the district is so important. And that, you know, that's why we say we can do more together than separate.
Right.
And so, you're right, Don.
Except that's
Yes.
not what we get taught by all the
Yeah.
gurus that are
Well,
out there
but
talking.
all the gurus are talking, you know, in a town of 5,000, I can make this, this can work in a town
See
of
that.
5,000. A town is 750, maybe, but chances are not, unless you have a town 15 miles away. And most of our church plants have been that. There's always been a group that all of a sudden see what happened, they start coming, and now we start growing them up and helping them go do that there, so.
Well, it just happens, but you just need to have a split somehow. And then you-
No, we didn't have a split. We've never had a split yet,
Change
thank you, good
worship
Lord.
style and you
One
get-
of the things I think that is a principle in Scripture, and you referred to one of the passages that shows it already. And often I think we are blind to what is cross-cultural and what is not cross-cultural. There's more than one culture in a town of 1,000.
Yes.
And you have to be able to see across that culture to reach the people that are in that other place.
Yeah. Well, and
And that's part of that prayer ministry, is opening our eyes, not also opening their eyes to Christ, but also opening our eyes to who the lost are in our community. And I think that, I've pastored in a town of 650. I was involved for some time in helping plant churches here in Kansas while I was planting in Marquette, mostly rural churches. I was told we could never plant a church in another town of 750 that already had some Bible preaching churches in it. We've got a healthy church there. And the reason is because the other churches were already closed in their culture. And the new church was able to reach across and penetrate culture that was unreached.
it started to see. It
Yeah,
starts to-
you
and
gotta
know,
see and reach the lost.
Here's another story that I don't think we've addressed, and I know I haven't addressed well. And that's the idea, there is multi-ethnic,
Yeah.
which I have no trouble. You know, Luther and I get together, you can say, hey, yeah, there's something different between you two.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
I don't either. But there's something different. But at the same time is, I think in a lot of our communities, we don't take time to understand the difference in socioeconomics.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing, folks. That's something Luther's talking about. Luther's saying, do you see the down and outers that no one else sees? And then here's the hard part. You're going to have to do something different to minister to them, because us middle class or upper middle class folk are really going to have trouble understanding and making them comfortable. And I've struggled with that, and I'm sure you can say the same, because upper class folk, they tend to come in and you're going to have to come up. No. God didn't come to change that first. We got to take them where they're at, so you have both and.
You know, it goes both ways as well, because one thing I was sharing with somebody else, I want to be able to, I want to be able to take people from a urban setting and take them into a rural setting, based on the fact, because there's still stereotypical type of things that are being perceived there that they need to see there. One of the things that is lost in our community is a good work ethic. I take them to a rural area, they don't see it. You feel me? So that is something that I want them to be able to see. So I understand what Don is saying, and I understand the concept of what he is saying as well. I just think that we just need to be able to understand the both together.
But I think Don brought out an idea, and this is something we're going to talk about tomorrow. How are we as a district going to get our head around it and start doing this? Can we do stuff more together? What do we have to do? Because you are a spread out district. You know, we have 150, 160 churches in one state, which is kind of fun. I still get too many miles on my car, but you guys you're spread out all over. But the fact is, that still doesn't take away this. This is God's call for our lives. And see, I think one of the biggest things I want this to do is to get you to start to think. I hope you take a pause and say, how do we make that work in our district?
So I want to address real quick, Don, because I think we're trying to head there. Okay, that's part of the reason Dan is here. Part of my goal is to say let's work together and get something going. But one of the ways to do that, and the reason I wanted Dan to, kind of speak on this topic, is that almost every church can identify that this is something that they should be doing. We can go to anybody and say you should be a multiplier already, and then as part of that, you're going to see this. You're going to need to start new churches. That should be part of this process. It's to identify with those churches that think, oh, well, how can we do this? I mean, frankly, I had somebody today say, well, I know that's important, but I don't know how it's important to me. Yeah, I don't know how I connect with that. And that's what I'm trying to do, is to say, how can we as a district help the 105 churches say every one of us should be involved in this, and then begin to build some processes as well. And so there would be a way. Let us tell you how you can be involved. Here's some things going on. Here's how you can do it. And so it's kind of a both and. It's not like just this. It's also we want to build structure on top of it. It's not there right now. We know that. The district doesn't have a lot of structure right now, but the goal is to move further with that.
And that's what we hope to come out of you guys. I hope you guys come out of here with. What is the stand? Go ahead.
Well, I think that message has begun.
Yep.
Over the years of, just the way I've heard it is evangelism, discipleship is one word.
Yep.
It's not two words.
Yep.
You can't evangelize without discipling and vice versa. And so that message, I think, is there. I think the issue is helping our bodies have the confidence in Christ to go do it.
Well, I think
And
that's back.
I would say it's not a should, you're called.
No, yeah. This is actually.
And Dan, one other question for you. We have a problem doing this stuff because we don't think about ecclesiology very much. We do a lot of the form stuff. This is the way we've done church before without thinking a lot of the function. And so just wondering, just practically speaking, in Minnesota right now, do all the churches look alike? I mean, are they all kind of doing this? Or is there other ways that they're thinking about church to reach these different things? Can you just give me an illustration?
We have, right now, we have several different, we have one church. We have a church we call Sanctus Ministries, which is a disciple-making ministries, and they do not have Sunday morning as we know Sunday morning. They have right now three or four small groups that are meeting every week, which worship's included in that, teaching's included in that, communion's included in that. And again, that's something that that's another model. And so we're not saying it has to be a model. It does have to be, if we're going to become part of our district, it has to meet standards of, so we're doing that. We also have churches doing a multi-site. I'll be very honest, that's not my first love, unless they're doing multi-site with live preaching at both of them. Because I think if we get multi-site, we gotta be careful. Multi-site, it can raise up the pastor to everything.
Yeah.
And so we have multi-site, we have church. Most of ours is we've changed our philosophy of ministry in the last 10 years, and that became churches planting churches. The district will not plant churches. My job is to come alongside you and help you figure out how you can plant churches. That's what I hear you saying, Don. How do we as a organization figure out how to organize so we can plant churches? And I'd rather use that word, institutionalized, but you and I both in the same word, because it almost becomes, once we say it institutionalized, it becomes a swear word. So we don't want to go there. But so how do we organize so we can? How do we go to churches? How does the district get it out that we want to go beyond that and we want to be planting?
The premise is there. I believe the premise is there in understanding that the lost need to be reached. So the premise is the methodology is going to be contextualized and different. For Bridge of Hope, it's about training urban leaders to go plant. In that context, based on the people that we are reaching at this point, because it's very difficult for that group of people to grow exponentially because of all the pain and the training and the healing that has to take place with them. And so we are in the process of creating internships so we can help college students who come in and train them to become urban ministries, to plant churches in urban context.
And that's what we're gonna talk tomorrow in our session specifically. We're gonna get into digging on how trying to rough out some of philosophy, what's philosophy, because if you don't have your philosophy of ministry together as planners, you're not gonna make it.
Yeah.
Let me take it, I do wanna go through this last part, because I think as disciple makers, I'm trusting you guys are doing that, but are we living a lifestyle of it? Are we being intentional? That's the one thing I had to learn, is to be intentional. It does not happen on its own. It's like you even talked there to Luther, we have to be doing internships, whatever. I right now have the privilege of meeting with 5 guys that are, I attend a church, the average age is 28. And the only reason it's 28 is because my wife and I go there. It would be 27 if we didn't go there. And I mean, that's, we have one new baby, we're having one new baby every 3 to 4 weeks right now. And young couples, but the beauty of it is, there's 5 guys that wanna get together with me every Tuesday morning. And so, and we're helping to stir in there. The other part is, it has to be a relationship. Remember, I think this is one thing that we're gonna see a lot more of. You heard the speaker this morning say, if we're not in relationship, we're not gonna make it. Because relationships where it's all, in fact, I have a book, I once was lost, I'll pull it out so you can see before I leave, that really helps us understand that. Then there also is.
Going back there, Dan, just the guy that helped us start these church plants, Bob Neundorf, he used to tell us at first there's 3 critical words in church planting. And
What
it
are
used to be location, location, location. Bob would say it's relationship, relationship, relationship.
So what are the 3 relationships? Let's see if you remember.
Do I remember those? No, I don't.
Relationship with God.
Okay, God.
Relationship with brother and sister in Christ.
Yes.
Relationship with lost. And so you deal with 3 relationships. And again, our goal is always Christ-likeness, guys, and you know that. We're always pushing towards Christ-likeness. It's not about ourselves, it's not about me. We don't want another moose in the world, we just do not. And so, you want,
moose loose.
we're pushing like Christ. We need to be on, we're a mission together, it's something we're doing with Christ. Again, it's not about doing it in my power, it's doing it in Christ's power. And I think here's the best illustration I have yet of disciple making. Luther, who said that one?
That was me, wasn't it?
No.
I'm sorry.
How about Jeff?
That's my guy.
Jeff Sorbick.
He's up in heaven right now.
Yep.
Jeff Sorbick said, here's what I have for the best illustration of of disciple making. Hand forward, hand backward.
That's what
You're
he
walking
did.
like an Egyptian.
Who do I have my hand forward to? Guys, all of us need to have our hand forward to somebody.
Yes.
I don't care how old you are, but who do we have our hand backwards to? And guys, we can have, gals, we can have more than one person. We need 1 or 2 people. One of those people has to be a lost person.
Mhm.
My lost people are 2 next door, Allie and Todd. And I'm surprised I haven't got if anything happens to their place, I'll get a text, no matter where I'm at. They're lost, this day is long. But they're reaching out. He's come to me and says, Dan, after we get slowed down a little this spring, I want to get in a Bible study with you. This is the first time, and we've been neighbors for 3-4 years, so this is the guy I'm gonna bring ahead. But so, I think this is something, guys, we can preach, and we can show the illustration of it, that it really helps us. And again, that's not mine, that was Sorby. They gave me that to think on and handle it. So again, as a church, are we about these things? How do we help people get about it? Do you guys have clusters down here? How do you guys in your cluster get the other parts of your cluster start talking about multiplication? See, that's gonna be where we get to start things moving to institution, organizational wise.
And that's actually something that is on my prayer list, goal sheet, and talking with Noah about, is to, in fact, try to bring this to clusters so that they can begin to pray about this. Where are the areas? Maybe there's a church already beginning to identify a place. How can the cluster come around and be part of, so you're kind of networked with an area already.
And well, the other part of that also is the idea of not only, we have to give many lanes for people to start working in. And the thing is, if we don't, then we can make them second-rate class citizens, as oh, you guys aren't a multiplying church. Well, again, if they're working on reaching the lost, disciple making, training up leaders, you know, all that is something that is a very important part of multiplication. But again, can we really become what we say? We can do things better together. You know, us free church people, and I'm talking about me now, we gotta lose a little bit of this independence. I think we're so proud of our independence, and that's hindering us, not helping us. Mike and I had, Tracy sat with a couple today that are from the Methodist Church. Now, they know what it is to be tied together, in a bad way. That's why they're looking to come to free church. But could we take a little bit of that and say, how can we be tied together tighter? How can we figure out, Sam?
And yeah, you know, the reason Luther and the Bridge of Hope Church is reaching out and getting people saved and helping people out is because like 15, 16 years ago, Luther got a vision that this is what God's called me to do. He said, I cannot do it alone, right? You and your brothers. And so I'm telling you, churches all over north of Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, I saw his church when we just got it there. It was like a bomb crater from World War II.
I love you too.
That's what it looked, and then I still remember the group, I think from Sabetha, that came out there and they all got poison ivy.
Omaha.
They all,
We got people coming from
everywhere.
everywhere. The aspect of this is that, what I appreciate about, the thing is this, I'm the only, maybe there's 2 urban churches in the Midwest District. That's a problem for me.
Yeah.
You know why it's a problem for me? I can't get nothing in the Midwest District.
Yeah.
I gotta go outside of the district. And I told them that with my Creole guys, right? And I told them, I said, you know I have to go outside the E3 to deal with urban ministry, all right? And now here's what I'm hearing. I heard it when I first came in 2003. Well, you know we know Norwegian and Swedish, is that we're white. I said, yeah, I understand that. But you're still telling me that in 2016. For me, that's a problem because there has not been any footage or any major change in that area. And I think that one of the things that when we planted this church and we was in the Midwest District, we got special autonomy because they didn't know what else to do because
We still know what else do you do.
no, what I'm saying is this, we couldn't have planted the church without rural churches.
Right.
Because we had Living Water, we had Don, we had Sydney, we had Pastor Sam, we had a lot of churches come alongside of us with the commonality, but then there was some distinctive that they could not help us with because they didn't have that familiarity and they didn't have that expertise. So I had to go outside, and that's one of the things that it bothers me that when I come to district, I can't get too much. What I get is that one of the things I try to do is build relationships when I come here and to network when I come here. But when I was out there, somebody said, where you gonna go to? And I looked at the list, I said, well, really nothing, but I'm gonna come support Dan, you know? Because that's what we've been doing. So I think that we in this case, and I'm seeing what you're doing. I'm glad that something is happening, and I would like to have dialogue with you. That's why I wanted to talk to Noah about is that aspect that I want to see more urban churches.
Well, we have to, that's
And
the
in
whole
this-
thing.
Well, maybe I'm wrong with that, is that under that point of being intentional, was part of planting the Hispanic church in Kearney and Broken Bow, and
Yeah,
being
Tim.
intentional about
Right.
it is that, okay, we had to spend time preaching to the congregation about what this was. It was like turning the Titanic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, mindset wise, is that a little that old Swedish kind of thinking was still there, that you have to confront that. And that when you put that to being intentional, you have to also then be ready for some of the opposition.
Well, and the fact is, and we have to push through.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact is, it's hard to push through. Because you gotta realize, I'm gonna use your illustration very, it's helpful, Luther. The illustration is very real there, but remember, church planting is taking a new territory for Christ.
Yeah.
And so that's real warfare. Moving into the inner city is taking a new area for Jesus Christ. That's real warfare. And again, I think a lot of times we don't realize the intentional need there. We do have the good thing about Luther. Luther will be a friend with anybody. You know, he even likes me, but he shows like he likes me. So.
That's the love of Jesus in me, dog.
But you start to realize you still have to build a relationship, and it's all about Christ, and we're moving ahead in His mission.
Yeah.
You know, the hardest part about church planting, when I planted our first church out, we were a church of 75. I took Newendorf aside and said, Newendorf, you don't understand one thing. Your money's all coming in. If I send out people from my church, guess what? We're not gonna make budget. That was a real thing. We're not gonna make budget. I was such a man of faith that the Sunday that they left, the next Sunday, I wasn't there. I left Dean Johnson come and preach. He was former DS. Because I wasn't sure if we were going down 65 or down to 55. And all of a sudden I said, if we go down to 55, you know, you start thinking in your head, well. You know what happened the next 3 months after they left? Giving doubled. And I never preached on giving. Every person that left was replaced in 3 months. That's God. That wasn't Moose.
Yes.
That was not Moose.
Yes.
Can we become a praying movement? And then will we put shoe leather to our prayers? If we don't put shoe leathers to our prayers, it's just we're going through emotion, and we can't do that. We don't do it.
I
I know I'm preaching
I
to
know
the choir.
what he's talking about in terms